7 embassies evacuate within 18 hours. Official statement: routine personnel rotation. Reality: diplomats fleeing by sea in the middle of the night. Helicopters land on destroyer decks. Submarines surface to extract staff. Encrypted communications spike across naval frequencies. Something is happening, something the public does not know. When those who control intelligence quietly leave a region, you ask one question: what did they learn? A French naval helicopter departs the embassy compound in Djibouti at 23:40 local time. 6 passengers, minimal luggage. Flight plan filed as training exercise. The helicopter lands on FS Auvergne, a Frem-class frigate positioned 12 nautical miles offshore. Passengers transfer immediately to below-deck quarters. The frigate increases speed and heads toward the Gulf of Aden. Official French government statement: scheduled diplomatic rotation. Red Sea Doctrine finds the flight manifests. The passengers include the deputy ambassador, the defense attaché, the intelligence liaison, and 3 signals specialists. These are not routine rotations. These are the people who know what is coming. At 01:15 a.m., a British Type 45 destroyer receives 4 passengers via rigid-hull inflatable boat from the port of Aden. The passengers boarded from an unmarked vessel in a maritime zone with no commercial traffic. British Ministry of Defense confirms the destroyer was conducting counter-piracy operations. They do not explain why diplomats are being extracted during counter-piracy missions. Satellite imagery shows the timeline. The unmarked vessel departed from a location 3 kilometers from the British consulate. Travel time matches the window when consulate staff would have left the compound. The passengers carry diplomatic pouches that are never opened for inspection. At 03:50 a.m., German naval personnel report submarine surfacing event in international waters west of the Red Sea. KSM U-36, a Type 212A submarine, conducts personnel transfer. 8 individuals board the submarine. Transfer complete in 11 minutes. The submarine submerges and disappears. German Federal Foreign Office issues no statement, but embassy staff rosters in the region show 8 personnel suddenly on leave status. Submarine evacuations are reserved for scenarios where surface extraction is considered too risky. What threat level requires underwater exfiltration of diplomats? Trade routes, missiles, and war. Red Sea Doctrine. Within 18 hours, Italian, Spanish, Japanese, and South Korean diplomatic missions conduct similar operations. Each claims routine rotation. Each involves naval assets. Each happens at night. Each evacuates personnel with intelligence or military liaison roles. The pattern is undeniable. 7 nations are pulling their most sensitive personnel out of Red Sea positions simultaneously. This is coordinated. This is based on shared intelligence. This is preparation for something. Satellite reconnaissance shows increased naval concentration in the region. 4 carrier strike groups within 800 nautical miles of the Red Sea. Submarine activity detected at triple normal levels. Aerial refueling tankers repositioned to support extended combat air patrols. Military communications traffic increases 47% in 72 hours. The pieces are moving, the board is being set, and diplomats are being removed from the board entirely. 1 embassy evacuation means local instability. 7 simultaneous evacuations mean regional war is assessed as imminent. Would you stay in a region where 7 governments are quietly extracting their intelligence personnel? Comment Y if you trust official statements. Comment N if you see what Red Sea Doctrine sees. Intelligence analysts in Washington, London, Paris, and Berlin are reviewing the same threat assessments. Sources indicate multiple indicators of major military operations being prepared, weapon systems being positioned, forces moving to readiness status, communications patterns consistent with pre-conflict posturing. The intelligence is specific enough to trigger evacuation protocols, but not public enough to cause panic. Diplomatic evacuations operate under carefully calibrated procedures. Level 1. Advise non-essential personnel to leave via commercial flights. Level 2. Organize chartered evacuation flights. Level 3. Deploy military assets for extraction. Level 4. Submarine and covert extraction of intelligence personnel. Red Sea embassies just went to Level 4. That is the level reserved for imminent combat operations in the immediate area. That is the level used when you expect airports to be hit, when you expect air defense systems to activate, when you expect the region to become a no-fly zone within hours or days. Public sees routine rotation. Red Sea Doctrine sees Level 4 evacuation. The extracted personnel carry more than personal belongings. Diplomatic pouches contain hard drives with classified information, code books for secure communications, lists of local assets and intelligence sources, evidence that would be catastrophic if captured. Standard protocol requires destruction of this material if embassy evacuation becomes necessary. But submarine extraction means you preserve the intelligence. You deny the enemy any access. You remove both personnel and operational security in one covert movement. Naval movements support the evacuation timeline. Destroyers and frigates position themselves along extraction routes. Submarines patrol underwater corridors. Combat air patrols establish air superiority over maritime zones. This is not just evacuation. This is force protection during intelligence exfiltration. The assets being protected are the people who know what satellites have seen, what signals intelligence has intercepted, what human sources have reported. These diplomats carry threat assessments that justify Level 4 extraction. Red Sea Doctrine examines what intelligence could trigger this response. Satellite imagery analysis likely shows military buildup inconsistent with defensive posturing. Missile systems being moved to launch positions. Naval forces concentrating in strike formation. Aircraft being armed and fueled for combat sorties. These are indicators that intelligence services monitor constantly. When multiple indicators align, evacuation protocols activate. Signals intelligence probably intercepted communications, indicating attack timelines. Encrypted military traffic follows patterns. When volume spikes and when specific units communicate, you can deduce operational planning. If intercepts suggest strikes are being coordinated for specific time frames, you evacuate before that window. Human intelligence sources likely reported imminent action. Local contacts, embassy staff observations, regional partners sharing threat information. When multiple independent sources report the same timeline, intelligence confidence increases. At sufficient confidence levels, ambassadors receive flash cables. Extract priority personnel immediately. The timeline matters. 18 hours is fast for coordinated multinational evacuation. That means the threat window is measured in days, not weeks. Intelligence assessments project hostile action within 72 to 96 hours. Evacuations complete before that window opens. Diplomats are safe before missiles fly. But what happened inside the shipping corridor shocked commanders. Commercial vessels in the Red Sea receive no warning. Shipping companies get no threat briefings. Civilian mariners continue normal operations, while 7 governments extract their intelligence personnel. This creates an intelligence gap. Diplomats know the threat. Military forces know the threat, but commercial shipping operates blind. Red Sea Doctrine asks why civilian vessels are not warned. 3 possible answers. 1. The intelligence is too sensitive to share without compromising sources. 2. Warning commercial shipping would reveal that governments expect imminent conflict. 3. Commercial shipping is considered acceptable risk compared to diplomatic intelligence exposure. None of these answers prioritize the safety of merchant mariners, vessels carrying hundreds of millions in cargo, crews of 20 to 30 personnel per ship, all operating in waters where 7 governments just conducted emergency intelligence evacuations. The moral calculation is clear. Protect classified information. Protect intelligence personnel. Accept that civilian shipping will discover the threat when attacks occur. Maritime insurance markets detect the pattern within hours. Underwriters have sources in naval circles. When submarine evacuations happen, word spreads. Premium rates for Red Sea transit increase 38% overnight. Some insurers suspend coverage entirely pending threat clarification. The market is pricing in what governments will not publicly confirm. War is coming. The evacuation creates secondary intelligence indicators. Embassy compounds go to minimal staffing. Consular services suspend appointments. Visa processing halts. These are visible changes that local populations notice. Regional news outlets report unusual embassy activity. Social media spreads speculation. Governments issue denials. But people who live near embassies see the helicopters, see the reduced vehicle traffic, see the shuttered windows and increased security perimeters. The evacuation cannot be completely hidden. Regional powers monitor Western embassy activities constantly. When 7 embassies evacuate intelligence personnel, simultaneously hostile intelligence services notice. They draw conclusions. Either the West knows something specific about imminent attacks, or the West is preparing to launch operations and removing personnel from potential retaliation zones. Either interpretation leads to the same response. Accelerate your own preparations. Move forces to higher readiness. Prepare for conflict within days. The evacuation becomes a catalyst. What was planned for next week might launch tomorrow. What was being carefully prepared might execute immediately. Intelligence operations create their own momentum. When one side evacuates, the other side assumes the timeline has compressed. Red Sea Doctrine tracks how evacuations change conflict timelines. Diplomatic extraction is not just about safety, it is signaling. It tells adversaries you expect hostilities. It tells allies you have credible intelligence. It tells neutral parties to prepare for disruption. The 18-hour evacuation sent all 3 messages simultaneously. Naval intelligence officers aboard the extracting vessels debrief the evacuated personnel during transit. What did you see in the final days? What did local contacts report? What changed in the operational environment? The debriefings produce tactical intelligence that updates threat assessments in real time. Information gathered from 7 different locations, 7 different perspectives on regional tensions, 7 data points that create a comprehensive picture. The intelligence fusion happens aboard destroyers and submarines, while evacuated personnel are still in transit. Updated assessments are transmitted via satellite to national command authorities. Decisions are made. Forces are repositioned. Rules of engagement are clarified. The machinery of potential conflict continues operating. Who controls this sea? A. U.S. and allies. B. Regional powers. C. No one. 72 hours after the evacuations, commercial shipping begins reporting unusual naval activity. Warships operating in formations, submarines surfacing in shipping lanes, maritime patrol aircraft conducting low-altitude passes. The Red Sea is militarizing. Cargo vessels request naval escorts. Container ships divert to alternate routes. Tankers increase speed to minimize time in threatened waters. The commercial maritime industry is reacting to what 7 governments already knew. Something is coming. The evacuated diplomats reach secure locations. Debriefings complete. Intelligence is processed. Threat assessments are finalized. But the original question remains unanswered. What specific intelligence triggered Level 4 evacuations from 7 embassies simultaneously? Governments maintain operational security. Classified assessments stay classified. The public receives carefully crafted statements about routine rotations and scheduled personnel changes. But Red Sea Doctrine examines the gap between official statements and operational reality. Submarines do not extract diplomats during routine rotations. Carrier strike groups do not concentrate for scheduled personnel changes. Intelligence services do not coordinate 7 simultaneous evacuations because of paperwork. The threat is real. The timeline is compressed. The Red Sea is approaching a threshold where diplomatic presence becomes unacceptable risk. Is this the start of a wider naval war? Comment Y or N. 5 days after the evacuations, no major attacks have occurred. No missiles have launched. No naval engagements have erupted. Some analysts suggest the intelligence was flawed. Some claim the evacuations were overcautious. Red Sea Doctrine offers a different interpretation. The evacuations changed the calculus. When one side removes its intelligence assets, the other side knows its operational security is compromised. Plans that were viable when surprise was possible become risky when the enemy is clearly prepared. The attack that might have succeeded on day 3 might fail on day 7 because forces are now postured defensively. Evacuations do not just protect personnel, they deter attacks by signaling readiness. The game theory is complex. If you evacuate and nothing happens, you appear to have overreacted. If you do not evacuate and attacks occur, you failed to protect your people. Intelligence services choose overreaction every time. Better to extract personnel unnecessarily than to lose them in an attack you saw coming. The 7 embassies made that choice. They pulled their most valuable intelligence personnel. They accepted the diplomatic cost of visible evacuation. They prioritized operational security over public perception. Red Sea Doctrine shows you what that choice reveals about the threat environment. When 7 governments simultaneously decide their intelligence personnel are at imminent risk, you are watching the preparation phase of conflict. What breaks next? Trade, diplomacy, or deterrence? Will the extracted personnel return, or are these embassies permanently reduced? What intelligence justified submarine evacuations? Can diplomatic presence be maintained in pre-conflict environments? Or has the Red Sea become too dangerous for normal operations? The answers will determine whether this was a temporary precaution or the beginning of sustained regional warfare. Subscribe to Red Sea Doctrine, where sea power decides everything.